There are songs that everyone can hear. The cheerful laughter of children, the ringing of goat bells across the hills, the whisper of wind through the ancient pine. But there are other songs. Songs that reveal themselves only to those who walk slowly enough to notice them. Grandfather once said, "The mountain never keeps its greatest secrets from kind hearts. It simply waits until someone is quiet enough to listen." A few days after the clouds had finally lifted from the valley, Heidi would discover that he was right. For somewhere beyond the sky meadow, hidden behind cliffs that few people had ever climbed, a waterfall had been singing for hundreds of years. Very few had ever found it. Even fewer had understood why it sounded different from every other stream upon the mountain. And before the sun set that evening, Heidi would learn that some places become beautiful, not because they are hidden, but because they are protected. The morning arrived bright and wonderfully clear. Not a single cloud floated above the Alps. The sky stretched endlessly across the peaks, deep blue from one horizon to the other. Golden sunlight spilled over the mountains, warming every rock and every flower. Tiny butterflies danced above the meadow. The goats were already awake. Barely was trying very hard to convince Swanley that breakfast should begin immediately. Heidi laughed as she stepped outside. "It looks like someone couldn't wait." Grandfather smiled while filling a wooden bucket with fresh water. Barely believes every morning should begin an hour earlier. The little goat looked up proudly, as though agreeing completely. Peter's whistle echoed up the valley. Today, it sounded cheerful again. Heidi smiled. The mountain sounds happy. Grandfather looked toward the distant peaks. So does Peter. Peter arrived carrying something unusual, a small wooden flute. Heidi's eyes widened. "You play?" Peter shrugged. "Not very well." "Can I hear?" He looked embarrassed. "It's only a few notes." Grandfather nodded. "A few honest notes are better than many proud ones." Peter smiled awkwardly and lifted the flute. The melody was simple, gentle. It floated across the meadow like birds gliding on warm air. The goats stopped eating. Even barely lifted her head. The little bird landed upon the fence and listened quietly. When Peter finished, the mountain became silent again. Heidi clapped happily. "That was beautiful," Peter laughed. "I missed 3 notes." Grandfather smiled. The mountain didn't seem to mind. As they prepared to leave, Grandfather looked toward the western cliffs. "There is something different today." Peter followed his gaze. "What?" Grandfather closed his eyes for a moment. "Listen." The children became still. At first, they heard only the breeze, then the bells, then birds, then something else. Very faint, almost hidden. A deep, gentle sound, like water, but unlike the familiar stream beside the cabin. This sound was softer, longer, almost like music. Heidi looked around. "Where is it coming from?" Grandfather pointed beyond the sky meadow. "Behind the western cliffs." Peter frowned. "There isn't a stream there." "There is now." The old man smiled. "Last week's rain woke an old waterfall." Heidi's eyes sparkled. "A waterfall?" Grandfather nodded. "It doesn't appear every year." Peter looked surprised. "I've never seen it." Very few have. The goats began climbing. Today, their bells sounded brighter than ever beneath the clear morning sky. Heidi walked beside Peter. "Do you think the waterfall really sings?" Peter thought for a moment. "Water always makes sounds." "But Grandfather called it music." Peter smiled. "My grandmother used to say, Every mountain has one place where it keeps its heart. Heidi looked toward the distant cliffs. Maybe that's where we're going, Peter laughed. You always believe stories, Heidi smiled. They usually turn out to be true. The little bird flew ahead, higher than usual, not toward the ancient pine, not toward the sky meadow, but farther west, toward cliffs neither of them had ever explored. Peter noticed. I don't think we've followed that way before. Heidi watched the bird disappear into the brilliant blue sky. Maybe today, the mountain is inviting us somewhere new. The morning breeze carried the mysterious sound once more. Not loud, not rushing, just a gentle song hidden somewhere beyond the rocks. A song that seemed to grow a little clearer with every step they took. The path beyond the sky meadow was unlike any Heidi had ever walked. There were no worn footprints, no smooth stones polished by shepherds, no familiar bends in the trail, only tall alpine grass dancing in the morning breeze. Wild lavender brushed gently against their boots. Small white flowers peeked from cracks in the rocks, while bright yellow buttercups nodded happily beneath the warm sun. The little bird flew ahead, never going too far. It would stop on a stone, turn its tiny head toward them, then continue onward, as though making certain they were still following. Peter smiled. I think it has decided to become our guide, Heidi laughed. Or maybe we're guests in its home. As they climbed farther west, the mountain changed. The familiar rolling meadows slowly gave way to tall gray cliffs. The air became cooler. The sunlight slipped through narrow openings between the rocks, painting bright ribbons across the ground. Everything seemed quieter here. Even the goats walked more slowly. The only sounds were the soft ringing of their bells, the flutter of butterflies, and the mysterious song of water. It was louder now, not rushing, not roaring, singing. The sound rose and fell like a gentle melody carried by the wind. Heidi stopped walking. Listen, Peter closed his eyes. It almost sounds... He searched for the right words. Like someone humming. The little bird answered with a cheerful chirp. Heidi smiled. Maybe it's singing with the waterfall. Soon, they reached a narrow opening between two enormous cliffs. It was hidden behind climbing ivy and flowering bushes. From a distance, it looked like nothing more than a shadow. Peter stared. I've never noticed this. Heidi gently pushed aside the branches. Behind them lay a tiny canyon. Both children stood completely still. It was the most beautiful place either of them had ever seen. The canyon floor was covered with emerald moss. Crystal clear water flowed gently between smooth white stones. Ferns stretched toward the sunlight spilling through the narrow opening high above. Wild orchids bloomed in every corner. Tiny butterflies floated lazily through the warm air. The whole place shimmered with life. Heidi whispered, "It feels like another world." Peter nodded slowly. I don't think anyone has been here for a long time. The goats wandered happily into the hidden valley. Barely immediately found a patch of fresh grass and began eating with complete confidence. Swanley walked quietly beside the stream. Even the smallest goats seemed strangely calm. The little bird landed upon a moss-covered rock near the water. It chirped twice, then became silent, almost as if it knew they had arrived. The song grew louder. Heidi followed the sound deeper into the canyon. Peter stayed close behind. The stream curved gently around enormous stones, polished smooth by countless seasons. The air became cooler still. Tiny drops of water floated through the sunlight like sparkling diamonds. Then, they saw it, hidden behind a curtain of green vines. A waterfall. It wasn't large, it wasn't powerful, it wasn't frightening. It was beautiful. Water spilled gracefully from a high shelf of rock, falling in hundreds of tiny silver ribbons before gathering into a clear pool below. Sunlight struck the falling water. Thousands of tiny rainbows appeared all at once. The entire canyon seemed to glow. Heidi could only whisper, "Oh!" Peter forgot to speak altogether. For a long time, they simply watched. The waterfall did not roar. It sang. Every drop seemed to have its own gentle voice. Together, they formed a melody unlike anything Heidi had ever heard. Heidi sat beside the clear pool. She dipped one finger into the cool water. Gentle circles spread across the surface. Immediately, tiny fish appeared from beneath the rocks. Silver, small, curious. Peter knelt beside her. "They're not afraid. They've probably never seen people." The little bird flew down beside the water. It drank quietly, then lifted its head toward the waterfall, as though listening. Heidi smiled. "I think this is its favorite place." Peter looked around the canyon. "I understand why." Near the edge of the pool stood something unexpected. An old wooden bench. Its wood had turned gray with age. Wild moss covered its legs. Tiny flowers had grown between its cracks. Heidi brushed away a few leaves. "Someone made this." Peter examined it carefully. It must have been many years ago. He noticed small letters carved into one side. The carving was faded, but still readable. "Leave only kindness." The children looked at each other. Neither spoke. The words seemed perfectly suited to the hidden place. Heidi rested her hand gently upon the old wood. "I like whoever built this." Peter smiled. "So do I." The wind shifted gently. The waterfall's song changed. Now it sounded deeper, warmer, almost like a quiet lullaby. Heidi leaned back against the mossy rock. "I could stay here forever." Peter laughed softly. "My grandmother would wonder where I disappeared. And grandfather would probably find us anyway." Peter nodded. "He always does." Both children laughed. Their voices echoed softly around the canyon walls before disappearing into the song of the waterfall. High above them, almost hidden among the cliffs, an eagle glided silently across the brilliant blue sky. Its great wings hardly moved. The little bird watched it without fear. For a moment, the tiny bird, the soaring eagle, the gentle waterfall, the quiet goats, and the two smiling children all shared the same peaceful valley. It felt as though the mountain itself had gathered every gentle thing into one secret place. Neither Heidi nor Peter noticed, but someone else had once loved this hidden canyon. Someone who had quietly cared for it, many years before. And before the day was over, grandfather would tell them exactly who that person had been, and why the little wooden bench had remained untouched for so many seasons. For a long time, no one wished to leave. The little hidden canyon felt untouched by time. The waterfall continued its quiet song. Butterflies drifted through shafts of golden sunlight. The goats rested peacefully beneath the cliffs. Even Barely had stopped searching for more grass. She simply lay beside the pool, listening. Heidi smiled. "I've never seen her this quiet." Peter laughed softly. "Maybe she's listening too." The children remained beside the old wooden bench. Heidi gently brushed more moss away with her fingertips. The words were beautifully carved. "Leave only kindness." She read them again, slowly, almost like a prayer. Who would write something like this? Peter looked around the canyon. Someone who loved this place. The little bird landed on the back of the bench. It chirped once, then twice. Heidi looked at it. I think it remembers. Peter smiled. You always think animals remember everything. Maybe they do. The afternoon sunlight slowly shifted across the canyon. The waterfall's silver ribbons sparkled like thousands of tiny stars. Tiny rainbows danced above the clear pool whenever the breeze changed. Heidi walked closer. She looked into the perfectly clear water. The stones beneath looked almost polished. Then, she noticed something. Near the edge of the pool, half hidden beneath crystal clear water, lay a smooth wooden carving. She carefully reached into the cool water and lifted it. It was surprisingly light. Peter stepped closer. What is it? Heidi gently wiped away drops of water. It was carved in the shape of a little bird. Its wings were spread wide. The carving had become smooth after many years beneath the flowing water. Someone had made it with great care. Peter turned it over. On the back, tiny letters had been carved. M. Keller. He frowned. I've never heard that name. Heidi smiled. Grandfather will know. The journey home began quietly. Neither child hurried. The little bird flew ahead toward the ancient pine. The goats followed happily. Every few minutes, the gentle song of the waterfall grew softer, until finally, it disappeared altogether. Heidi looked back one last time. The entrance to the canyon had already vanished behind flowers and climbing vines. It was almost impossible to believe such a beautiful place existed there. It disappeared, Peter smiled. No, it hid. When they reached the cabin, the evening sun had turned the meadow golden. Grandfather was sitting outside, quietly repairing one of the wooden fences. He looked up as they approached. You found it? Peter looked surprised. The waterfall? Grandfather smiled. I heard it. Heidi laughed. From here? Grandfather nodded. The mountain carries music farther than voices. Heidi carefully placed the little wooden bird into Grandfather's hands. We found this. The old man became very still. His fingers gently traced the smooth wings. For a long moment, he said nothing. The evening breeze moved softly through the meadow. Finally, Grandfather smiled. I haven't seen this in almost 40 years. Heidi's eyes widened. You know it? I helped carve it. Peter stared. You? Grandfather nodded. But it wasn't my idea. He looked toward the western cliffs. It belonged to my oldest friend. The shepherd? Heidi whispered. Grandfather shook his head gently. No, a wood carver. His name was Matthias Keller. The children sat beside him. Even the goats wandered closer. It felt as though everyone wished to hear the story. Grandfather held the little wooden bird carefully. When we were young, Matthias loved two things, the mountain and silence. Peter smiled. Silence? Grandfather nodded. He believed beautiful places should never become crowded. So he built that bench. Yes. And every spring, he repaired it. He looked toward the distant cliffs. He never told anyone where the waterfall was. Why? Heidi asked. Grandfather smiled. Because some places grow smaller every time too many people discover them. The children became quiet. They understood. Grandfather continued. Every year, he carved one small bird. He placed it beside the waterfall. And every winter, the spring floods carried it away. Heidi looked down at the little carving. So this one came back. Grandfather nodded slowly. Perhaps it wanted to. Peter smiled. Or perhaps the waterfall chose Heidi. Grandfather laughed softly. The mountain does seem to like her. Heidi blushed. I simply listen. Grandfather looked at her proudly. And that is exactly why. The evening slowly settled across the Alps. Golden light faded into soft shades of pink and violet. The first evening star appeared above the highest snowy peak. Peter stood. I should go home. Grandfather handed him a small loaf of fresh bread. For your grandmother. Peter smiled. She'll be happy. As he started down the path, the little bird flew after him for a few moments, then returned once again to the ancient pine, almost as if making certain both friends reached home safely. Inside the cabin, the fire burned gently. The smell of pine filled the room. Heidi climbed into her little bed beneath the round window. She held the little wooden bird for a moment before placing it carefully on the windowsill. Moonlight touched its tiny wings. Outside, the mountain slept peacefully. The waterfall continued singing somewhere beyond the western cliffs. Its gentle melody floated through the night, heard only by the stars, the trees, the birds, and those patient enough to truly listen. Heidi closed her eyes. She realized that the greatest discoveries are not always hidden behind high mountains. Sometimes, they are hidden behind hurried footsteps. The mountain had never hidden the waterfall. It had simply waited until two children arrived, with quiet hearts, gentle voices, and enough kindness to leave nothing behind, except gratitude. Outside, the ancient pine whispered softly beneath the moon. The little bird tucked its head beneath one tiny wing. The goats slept peacefully in the meadow. And somewhere, far beyond the stars, the song of the hidden waterfall continued, just as it had for countless seasons, waiting patiently for the next kind heart to find its way home.